Hello YouTube, this is Alpha White Wolf bringing you a personal project that I've been looking forward to for some time now. D&D for beginners. Now, if you are new to Dungeons & Dragons, this is a video that's intended for you. There are a bunch of other videos and series on YouTube that do this as well, but I'm really interested in putting my 2 cents in there, putting my work out there as well, just to make sure that anyone who doesn't somehow find those other sources of information might stumble across this one. And if you are a little bit more experienced in D&D and you want to kind of engage in some talk in the comments, I fully support it and I fully encourage it. So, this video is not going to be going too deep into things. This is more of a introduction video. This is something that allows someone who has no idea about Dungeons & Dragons to get an idea of what exactly it is. Now, you'll be able to find numerous examples on YouTube of people actually playing D&D, and hopefully with what you learn from this video, you'll be able to take that and give it a bit more, and be able to give those series, those videos, those campaigns, another look with a bit more context. As for this video, this is going to be covering just a few basic overview things. I'm going to start in like broad strokes and then kind of narrow down into specifics. In this video, I'll be talking more about what is Dungeons & Dragons, how do you play it, why do you play it, and from there we'll be able to move on to things like building a character, the character classes, the character races. As for the rough schedule for these videos, right now it's going to be this one, which is going to, as I said, be like a broad overview of D&D concepts. The next video that I'm planning on making is building a character. And for that I will do like a very simple kind of build to kind of show you what it is that goes into making a character for you to play. Then after that, I'll do a video covering all the classes in D&D, what their traits are, what their strengths are, and then after that, I'll be able to go into a much longer list where I cover each individual class in its own individual video. When I get to that point, I'll probably start with the 4 basic classes of Fighter, Rogue, Cleric, and Wizard. And then from there, I'll be able to address the other classes for reasons that I will elaborate upon when we actually get to those videos. But for right now, let's go ahead and get into the disclaimer before we get too deep into the weeds here. If you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button and stay up to date with our uploads by ringing that bell icon. If you like the video, indicate so down below. If you have suggestions for future videos, drop them in the comments. In the description will be a link where you can go and find things like a PDF version of the character sheet, as well as a link to Gaming Glatorius' Twitter page, so you can head over there and follow us on that. So, let's get into this. What exactly is D&D? Well, D&D, or Dungeons & Dragons, is a fantasy role-playing game, or RPG. D&D, at its most basic, is... anyone who's played Skyrim has an idea of what D&D is already, even if they don't quite realize it. The difference is that Skyrim is still a video game, which means that it is very much bound by certain rules of programming. D&D, it does have its rules, but so long as you're able to do really good with dice rolls, those rules end up becoming a bit more like suggestions. So in D&D, it's a game where you can actually, much like in Skyrim, you can pick what race you are. You can pick how you develop your character, how do they fight, how do they operate, how do they behave. In D&D, you get a lot of creativity there. And it really allows you to express yourself and really go to town with any kind of pent-up creative urges. Now, there is obviously the question. I'm pretty sure anyone who's watching this video has heard of D&D for years. But what might surprise you is exactly how old it is. So, bit of a history lesson. D&D was officially started back in 1974 by men Ernest Gygax and David Arneson. It was published the same year by Gygax's company, Tactical Studies Rules. Now, back then, obviously, it was still like really new, so it did not have quite the polish that it does today. But what's important is that it became so well known that in 1997, it was acquired by Wizards of the Coast. Wizards of the Coast, by the way, are a subsidiary of Hasbro. Hasbro, one of the biggest names in board games, its subsidiary picked up this role-playing game. Now, obviously, picked it up about 20 years after it was released, but still, the fact that a major company noticed D&D and realized that it had potential, very promising. But even more important than all of that, I'm sure that some people are shocked to realize this. D&D is almost a half century old. By the time 2024 rolls around, D&D will officially be 50 years old. It has been around longer than some of our parents right now. That's mind-boggling. But that's enough of the history lesson. I'm sure that anyone who has seen people play or has heard of people playing probably has wondered why. Why really bother? There are other things you can play, right? Well, sure. But the fact remains that D&D offers, again, that creativity that no computer or no video game to this day possesses. And that creativity, that freedom that it provides is honestly something that makes the investment of time and effort worth it. I believe, personally, that D&D offers a chance to kind of live vicariously, as you might say. If you go through your day, it's an exhausting, nonsensical 9-to-5 grind in a cubicle farm, you want to have some excitement. You can get off work, go meet up with your buddies, go set up the D&D table, the dungeon master puts up his screen, everyone pulls out their character sheets and dice, and they are ready to go. You're not some cubicle farm clerk. You're not some guy who punches in a keyboard all day. You're suddenly a powerful wizard or a noble warrior swinging his sword and bringing justice to evildoers. You're a rogue sneaking in the shadows or a cleric healing their party to make sure they can fight on. You're not some boring, regular, average Joe going through their day. When D&D starts, you're not that person. You're whatever person you have created, you are whatever adventure you have. You are able to live, you're able to live through this character in a setting that you usually can only see in movies. If you want to make a character that's like Aragorn from Lord of the Rings, make a character that's like Aragorn from Lord of the Rings and play as you want. That's one of the big things I think makes D&D so attractive. But more than that, there is a lot of use of D&D in things like therapy and social anxiety. To expand upon that briefly, everyone knows that when you're talking with people in real life, there are definitely wrong answers, wrong statements, wrong responses. D&D allows you to overcome the anxiety that comes with that. If you're kind of anxious about that, you're always realizing that, oh God, if I say something wrong, it's going to be disastrous, it's going to be awful. You know this, but if you have social anxiety, it's even worse. In D&D, it allows you to develop those social skills in a fairly low risk and entertaining way. Even if you mess up a dialogue with a character, so what? It's a game. And no matter how invested you are, if they can add a humorous twist to it, you're more than capable of rolling with that. Beyond that, D&D is also very useful for things like teamwork. The idea of a D&D party is that you're working with the other adventurers at the table, trying to overcome some kind of problem, trying to defeat some big bad boss, trying to rescue someone, trying to solve some problem. And you're working with the team. Beyond that, it's just a relaxing thing. It's something that allows you to kind of work the stress away in a manner that, so long as you're a courteous player, is actually really healthy. Now, enough of that heavy stuff. Let's start moving into the fun stuff. How to play. So first off, you're going to need a few things if you want to play D&D. Namely, you're going to need at least a dungeon master. This is a person who is either a more experienced player, someone who has been playing for a little while, and then went on to be a dungeon master themselves, or someone who has simply taken the time to read through the dungeon master guide, the various books, who is willing to learn the rules so that they can allow other people to play. As for the players needed, you need at least two. More is obviously recommended. I would always recommend a party of at least 3, but probably no more than 10, because at that point it just starts getting way too big. So anywhere from 3 to 10 players, you've got an adventure party there. Beyond that, you need some equipment. You need things like character sheets. Now, fortunately, nowadays, you can choose to actually go to a website to print off character sheets, or you can just fill them in. They're available as fillable PDFs online. So it's really simple. Fill in the general information and then leave certain stuff blank. That way you can modify it as time goes on. Or you can even choose a more recent development called D&D Beyond. Now, D&D Beyond is an app that you can get, and you can use it on your phone or tablet. Now, I personally don't use it, mostly because I have a preference for the actual paper version. But D&D Beyond allows you to track your character in a character sheet, just like the actual hard copy character sheet, but in the convenience of your phone or tablet. I find it a little trickier because you're trying to have to kind of go back and forth all over the place in order to find the information you're looking for. I can find that same information with a brief glance at a paper character sheet by the time they even get the app pulled up or get to the right screen. But to each their own preference. I wish I could say I was sponsored by D&D Beyond, but unfortunately I'm not. But I do still recommend them if you are interested in going the digital route for your character sheet. Beyond that, you'll need things like dice.
So when it comes to dice, D&D players in general, but Dungeon Masters especially, will sometimes just start accumulating entire sets of dice. For example, most of these, I think, pretty much these entire 8 sets here, I got in a starter kit for Dungeons and Dragons, which was really useful. It means that anyone that I was playing with would always have a set available. It's usually advisable that the DM has at least a few sets on hand, just in case a new player is arriving and doesn't have a set of dice for themselves. In addition, you can usually get like little packs of dice at most game centers in like a Walmart or such to kind of supplement your dice collection with some more D6s. I personally like the plastic dice, but I especially love like the metal ones here. They have a really nice weight to them, but they are a little bit more expensive. These ones, these black ones with green lettering, green numbers, were like $35, but I love the way they feel and love the way they sound when they roll. Generally, though, sets like this you can find in most game stores, stores where you can get like board and puzzle games and stuff of that nature. You can get sets like this for a couple bucks, like 5 to 10, depending on how well made they are. Beyond that, it's always advised that DMs have just like an abundance of dice on hand. You never know when you might have that one wizard who has like an obscenely powerful fireball. To highlight the affordability of these dice, this set is literally 36 d6s, and they are pretty small, and they were only like $6. Yeah, $6 for 36 dice. Now, obviously, you need some kind of specific dice for actual Dungeons and Dragons, but the good news is that these dice are not going to be too much more expensive. Like I said, you can just put out a couple bucks. I think I once got like 5 entire sets for like $10 on Amazon. So you can definitely find affordable sets for whenever you want to play for yourself. And even more importantly, you can always accumulate more dice. I love being able to have those spells or abilities where you need to roll like multiple d6s or multiple d8s. And it's just so satisfying to just have a palm full of dice, roll them, and just watch your DM's face as you destroy whatever you just attacked.
In addition to that, you'll need an adventure. Now, there are multiple ways to go about this. There are numerous actual published adventures from Wizards of the Coast that you can pick up, thumb through, modify as you need, and then employ for your campaigns. Or you can do something that I like to do in homebrew. Basically, you create your own story, and you have the overall story itself, but you also have these small, but the story is broken up into sessions where the goal can be go to some place and talk to these people, or something as simple as go to this area and defeat these enemies. I like to do it as an alternating style. Like one session is going to be like a narrative session. That session is going to be picking up items, making sure your character is leveled up properly, talking to people about getting what you need, and then moving on to where you need to be for the next session, which is a combat session. You do your combat, you defeat the enemies, you accomplish the goal, all is well and good, you accumulate experience points, then you move on to another narrative session where again you apply those experience points, you update your character as necessary, you talk to the NPCs as necessary, and from there you can get a nice rhythm going. The final thing is, and you don't really need this, but I like to incorporate them simply because it allows for a much more, I don't want to say interesting, but it does allow for a much more invested group of characters. That is minis. Now the minis are very useful in the combat sessions because they allow you to understand the dynamics of the battlefield. You get to know where you are, where are your allies, where are your enemies, what's your positions in relation to each other, what's your position in relation to landmarks, some kind of features in the environment that you can use for cover, concealment. Is there something I can use to hide in? Is there something I can use to climb on top of? Having miniatures allows you to have an understanding of a three-dimensional space that theater of the mind, as it's called, sometimes doesn't provide. Now, with that said, I will cover just a few more things and then wrap this video up. So, theater of the mind, as I just mentioned, is essentially playing D&D but without complex maps, complex scenery. You'll undoubtedly have seen like the really inventive scenery, like actual little buildings and towers and mountain ranges, lots of environments that you can actually look at, maneuver, and manipulate. That's like really high tier kind of D&D playing, and frankly, it's not something that most D&D players will actually do. That's an investment that is way beyond their means. Beyond that, miniatures, where you can get them, where you can get the dice. Yeah, a lot of this stuff you can buy at any local game store. Like if they sell things such as board games or puzzles, chances are someone who works there will be able to direct you to some other store or some other section in that store that sells D&D related merchandise. And that's pretty much it for this particular episode in the series. The next one will be covering the building of a very simple character, and I'll be able to show you that if you're creative enough with it, you can really make a impressive character even from level 1. But I'm going to end this video here because this is the kind of stuff that will be covered in greater detail in other videos. So, if you like this video, indicate so down below. If you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell to stay up to date with our uploads. If you have suggestions for future videos, drop them in the comments. In the description will be a link to Gaming Glatorius' Twitter page, so you can head over there and follow us on that. I'll also leave a link to where you can go and get a fillable PDF version of the character sheet. And I hope that those watching this video are interested in the next one, where I walk you through how I create a basic first level adventure. This has been Alpha White Wolf. I'm signing off. You keep howling, Wolfpack.